Hey guys, Ted from Nerdarchy here. For nerds, by nerds. With me is
Dave.
So today we're here to talk about Dungeons & Dragons monsters, demons, and devils. Man, that's a mouthful.
It sure is. I feel like we've done this sometime before. But, yeah, a little while back for the Nerdarchy website, which you can find at nerdarchy.com, I did an article on my top 10 scariest Dungeons & Dragons monsters.
So now, when you mean scary, do you mean like the most powerful or the hardest to bring down?
No.
Okay, so why do you, what is the reason for scary?
Okay, scary to me is those monsters, those things that just invoke this primal fear in you that is almost inexplainable.
Okay.
Where, okay, sure, an ogre is a scary monster. It's big, it's strong.
It hits hard.
It hits hard. But it's not terrifying.
Okay.
To me, terrifying monsters are going to do something more than just beat you or kill you.
Okay.
And there are, like they say, there are fates worse than death.
Indeed.
So that brings us back to demons and devils.
Well, they have that reputation for having that exact effect, so it kind of fits.
They're scary in the sense that they're not satisfied with just defeating you. They're not satisfied with beating you. They don't want to just kill you. They want to break you. They want to corrupt you, and then they want to steal your soul. So that's why they're so terrifying to me.
Okay.
Now, Dungeons and Dragons has had demons and devils in it from the very beginning. They're a monster that goes way back in mythology, and this kind of, you just need them, right?
Indeed.
So it's always been demons and devils up until sometime in the 80s.
When D&D got this really bad reputation, they had kids killing parents and all kinds of craziness.
Whoa, settle down. They didn't have people doing anything.
Okay, well,
they were getting blamed.
Yes, my apologies.
For being a satanic game.
Right. So,
none of the bad stuff actually had anything to do with D&D.
It was psychotic people who were wired wrong.
But, so in TSR at the time, in order to give itself a PR facelift,
they reworded some stuff.
They changed the names. They weren't demons and devils anymore. They were the Tenari
and the Beatsu.
And they started this concept, which was kind of cool, which was the Blood War. For our friends out there that are old Planescape heads. But so the war is between basically law and chaos.
Right.
The Batsu were lawful evil, where the Tenari are chaotic evil.
Right.
And they both basically kind of want the same thing, but they just can't get along. There's so many souls, so little time.
Indeed.
But, so they basically want to corrupt human souls, or elf or dwarf, as the case may be. And for them, it's almost like a currency.
Right.
So it's this war, over the prime material plane which we inhabit. And for the most part, they have trouble directly interacting with it. So, but when they do, they don't want to just go there and wreak havoc and kill. Some of the lesser creatures will, because they're not as intelligent,
right,
and they're not as sophisticated. But the more complex, no, they don't want to do that. They want to raise up a tyrant and have them do that on a massive scale. And even better is to raise up that tyrant from what would have been a regular, normal, possibly even good individual.
Right.
Because then they get the benefit of all this evil that gets spread in the world.
And prevent the good at the same time.
And they corrupted a soul. And you know where that soul goes when it's all said and done. Right. It's going either to the abyss or straight to hell. Which is also kind of a cool mechanic in the game. Is the concept of hell and the abyss. Hell being for the Batsu and the abyss for the Tenari.
Right.
And each of them are ruled by their own princes and lords.
Right.
So, basically you have, amongst evil masterminds, you have evil masterminds. which, again, is really, really crazy. Like, one of the things in the game, they say, if you even say a demon or devil's true name, they hear it.
Right.
And, you know, if you invoke it too much, they'll appear.
Well,
And that's not as good as you think.
Time.
Yeah. And that's not it's more of a mythology thing than anything.
Right.
But, again, it's easily incorporated into the game, and they do mention it.
Right.
But, you know, the problem with that is when they come, they're usually not happy about being drug away from whatever it is they're doing.
Because they do, you know, in a sick and perverted way, they do have, you know, a life of their own.
A schedule. So. We have to stick to the schedule. You just set me behind 73 souls. How are you going to pay for that?
Well, I mean, if it's a devil, I mean, that could absolutely, you know, that would fit into their structured world. Whereas the Tanari, the demon, they might come back and be like, yeah, I was in the middle of killing somebody else, so I'm going to kill you instead. Yes,
and it's going to be very slow and very painful. Well, you know, even if you go back to the novels, Tahikis, you know, ends up capturing Raceland when he sacrifices himself to kind of save the world.
That's Dragonlance for any of you people who...
Yeah, after nearly destroying it. Because, you know, he was okay with destroying the world, but, you know, not someone else destroying it.
Well, yeah, I mean... Got to be him or nobody.
Well, so Tahikis is essentially Tiamat,
right?
Which Tiamat is essentially a devil. Would basically torture Raceland all day long, and kill him at the end of the day, and then raise him up and do it all over again.
Sounds like a wonderful way to live.
Well, and you know, and then okay, so you go to let's go from Dragonlance to Forgotten Realms. Well, there's another character we know of that happened to. You know, one of our favorite characters, Wulfgar.
Yep.
You know, from the halls of the Companions of the Hall.
Right. He was, you know, whisked away, you know, from his death to be tortured until you know, he could, you know, later show up.
And which goes
by the way,
back,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. And that which I believe it was Urutu that had him, right?
Yeah.
Which was the demon that
Drizzt had defeated, and he said, you know, I'll remember you and I'll be back in 100 years, because, you know, to an elf, 100 years is not a long time.
No, and it's even less to, you know, one of the Desnans of the lower planes.
Right.
So, and he actually came back sooner, and he found other ways to get back at him. So, you know, even with that 100-year barrier, they don't forget, and they may not be in your face, but if you slighted them enough to banish them, they're thinking about, how can I get this motherfucker back? I'm going to make them pay.
You know, and if you're you know, a human or a halfling that just has a under 100-year lifespan, it's usually not going to be a problem. But if you're, you know, a young dwarf or an elf that has that, you know, multiple century lifespan, it's very possible for these demons to, you know, to come back with a vengeance.
Well, but, you know, even if you have a short lifespan, they may not physically be able to come back, but that doesn't mean they can't affect things on this world.
That's true.
And, you know, it depends on how much of a grudge they're holding, really. You know, how motivated they are to pay you back. And here's the thing, right? You may escape punishment or retribution, but your descendants probably won't, because they're not going to see a difference. They're gonna punish them as if they were you.
Bloodline. No big deal. I'll just get whoever's next.
Demons and devils are kind of funny like that. So that, I guess that's a little bit of a history and a background.
But how do we use the whole point of the Dungeons & Dragons monsters is to how do we best use these monsters in the game?
Well, here's the great things about demons and devils. Any level. They are usable at any level. Not only are there CRs that can challenge any level, but you can actually use an extremely powerful demon and devil your party has no chance of overcoming as a role-playing encounter. You know, as a red herring. You know, there's a number of ways to invoke these beings in your game that doesn't have to strictly mean violence. And because overcoming a demon lord may not be about physically defeating it, but it might be about gathering the components to a ritual to bar its entry into this world, or to send it back. You know,
or so if you have something, you know, you obviously you don't want to put a CR-18 in front of a CR-3 and give them the experience for choosing to not side with them. That would just be, kind of ridiculous in power scale. But if over the course of a long campaign, if you're constantly resisting the urge, and staying a good character despite this creature's insistence, that could be, an added benefit for a character. Hey, all right, well, you've defeated this character. You get, the XP.
What if you have players that are kind of shady? This works. My favorite is the one or two characters that are shady
In a large party.
In a large party. Preferably one.
Right.
Where they're being tempted and slowly moving to the dark side. It's kind of like that Raceland story where, he kind of had allegiance to the group, but at the same time he had his own agenda, and he wasn't particularly a good person to begin with. His only really redeeming quality was he actually really loved his brother Caramon.
Right.
But, in our own game, I had one of my players actually died during the game. But I offered him a deal. And he took the deal. Well, there was back in, I think it was still 2nd edition, there was they introduced rules for taint.
Okay.
And so what I was doing was, he was being affected by this taint. And eventually, it would come to a point where he was going to have to go decide one way or the other. And, of course, it was, I forget if it was a demon or a devil. We did this campaign a long time ago. But that ultimately was what was behind it. And, so that's what they want to do. They want to slowly tempt you and help you and give you little things, right? But there's always a price. Until you've gone so far over. It's like, what do you do? What do I do now? I've crossed the line.
Right.
I've invoked this evil over and over again.
And you don't need to have a character die. I mean, you could use some other object, or even the shadows themselves as a counterpoint. I believe we mentioned in some of our earlier videos, about Nate's evil white book. You could certainly have a character who has come upon this bizarre book, and he's using it as a journal, and it's kind of talking back to him, and it's really kind of the essence of some kind of demonic or devil power that is willing to, all right, I'll give you something, if you just give me either whatever motivation you want. Give him your soul, become my minion, whatever.
But it probably won't even start like that. It might be very small sacrifices to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, well, just, kill a chicken for me. A chicken? No big deal. People kill chickens all the time. They eat them, right? But next time, maybe it's something else, maybe it's just get this thing and put it in this place, which seems innocent enough.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe, you have to steal it from somewhere and then put it into place, right? So it's these like small tweaks that where you're corrupting them little by little.
And that's the real thing. And if you're questioning like, well, okay, well, how do you reward the players who are doing these kind of evil things? It's very easy to offer them templates or portions of templates. Added levels, experiences, all different kinds, stats. There's all different kinds of ways to, give them their essence of whatever.
Well, enticements.
Yeah, enticements.
And it can be it can actually be smaller than that, though. I mean, you can give them a skill point. Things that aren't going to really break your game, but enough to make them go, I think I want to do that. A minor magic item. Like you said, a stat bump. You're like, wow, all I had to do was kidnap a child, and I got a +1 to my intelligence. For a mage, you'd be like, I don't know. Children are born every day. Stat points aren't so easy to come by. So the key thing, the core thing is you can introduce demons and devils right away, and you don't even have to come up with a corresponding monster manual entry, right? You can just come up with the idea and play with it for a while over the course of the campaign.
Right.
And that's just from the temptation aspect of it, but from the other where maybe, you first encounter it through cultist. Not actually a demon or devil itself, but those that worship it. And so
that opens up a whole new plethora of monster types and character types and things. I mean, they have, okay, well, I'm a boring NPC, human, and all you need to do is tack on the word cultist, and all right, there you go.
Yeah.
There's your CR third or half or whatever.
Well, and then you can work up, and you find out this cult is part of something bigger, and maybe they're trying to actually open a gate or a portal to bring in their master, their god, and that's another thing. Or even monsters. Monsters will sometimes worship different demons and devils as a god,
right?
And so there's no reason why you can't have, clerics and priests of Asmodeus, gaining spells, and again that changes it a little bit too. So then there's also the servants of that greater being that you can introduce. So you could really build your whole campaign off of one powerful demon, and what the culmination of that campaign is, they finally have to confront the creature itself. So that there's so many ways you can go with it.
Indeed.
There's so much source material, both RPG and novels.
Right.
The Dactyl from R.A. Salvatore's Demon Wars,
right,
was a friggin' great example.
Indeed.
And that, and he did both aspects. He did to actually having to confront the physical manifestation, but then later on he did the more spoiler alert, you're boned. Later on, having to deal with the manifestation of this evil that actually possessed, one of the
characters. Say characters.
Well, characters, but I was going to actually say the head of the Diabolic Order Church, which is supposed to be the pinnacle of good in this world.
Right.
Yeah, if you haven't read it by now, it's been out for years.
You're probably not gonna. So.
Yeah. Well, actually, though, when you're reading that series, I think they let you know right away that he's speaking to something, and I think most halfwits can figure it. I figured it out fairly quick, so I don't think it's that much of a spoiler.
It was pretty easy, but
Yeah. So, but so here, that's the thing. Like, when you're talking demons and devils, it's not just the monster. It's sometimes it's like the ideal. The corruption.
Well, as they say, power corrupts absolutely, and absolute power. Or how's it go?
Let's see. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. I don't know.
That's it.
Maybe something. Someone smarter than me, put it in the comments. I know you're out there.
So when you've got a greater power, it's easier to corrupt those of a greater power.
Well, and the other thing too, they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions, which is awesome for a role-playing game, because there's just so much to draw from that. Because really, what you can do is, that's the carrot you offer. Your players have a good outcome they're trying to produce, so you give them the easy way.
Right.
Right. So, but every time they take the easy way, there's always going to be a little bit of price. So you had to sacrifice one person, but you saved thousands. It's worth it, right?
Oh, of course.
And it just keeps going until until there's so much blood on their hands, there's so much taint. What do you do now? How do they find redemption? Which can be a whole another thing in itself.
I mean, you could choose, and depending upon how pinnacle that central character is, and how many players in the party, it becomes a fork in the campaign. Okay, well, you've made it to this point. Well, now you've crossed that line, and you are aware. So the options are, okay, well, I continue down this dark path, and that's a whole separate campaign. Or, you say, okay, well, let me seek atonement and try and undo that which I've done, and there's a whole separate path. So you've got, two vast, campaign ideas that you can go with that. It might have started off as a good campaign, and it's now turned into evil, and that guy says, okay, well, I'm going to go evil. I've got 3 other party members. What do I do? Can I convert them or kill them and move on from there? What do I have to do to maintain my path? And that can be, pretty interesting. I've been in games, several times that I found out either in the session or after the session, okay, well, there's some kind of contention. This character's plan is to do this, or this character has been against us this entire time. Your Eberron game, Will's character, it was like, yep, I was a bad guy. Sorry, I got found out. And that was his exit from the game, and that was really cool. I was in another campaign where there was an evil magical artifact, and it was trying to corrupt the party. And I had a character who was planning on going evil, but was not evil at the start of the game, and the artifact came into my possession, and it tried to offer me something that wasn't what I wanted. And rather than, dipping into temptation then, I put up a wall, I forced it away, so the sword chose somebody else. And, yeah, the artifact was a sword. So later on down the campaign, the sword knew I was a threat because I had already resisted its temptations. It didn't know that Ted's idea for the character was to go evil. It only knew what it knew. So things came to blows. The guy holding the sword wound up losing. So by losing, he died. Him and whoever sided with him wound up being killed. Character came in with a new dude, and we went on and, we wound up, destroying the artifact and whatever. But it was a choice. Things could have gone a vastly different way.
And that's just an example of how an idea can really change and shape a campaign. And really, to bring us back to Demons and Devils, like it could have went a different route where like the artifact was actually possessed by a demon or a devil, or insert demon devil in place of artifact.
Exactly.
So these are the kinds of monsters that really they indirectly and directly can shape your campaign world and create challenges and interesting obstacles. Or in the other case where you're talking about a player being turned evil, right? So what did the demon or devil actually truly do in the campaign? Well, they just created a new monster, and that new monster is one of your players. Which, I love anytime I can do that and you kind of have a player secretly working against the party. It's a lot of fun if it's done right. I mean, you can't do it all the time. It gets to be a little hack. But
you got to have a willing player, too.
And you got to have a willing player. That's not usually that hard. I have too many willing players, I think. But, again, so just a quick recap. Demons, devils, you can't introduce them too soon, and they can't hang around for too long.
Between followers and the basic Monster Manual entries, they can cover every single CR that's out there. You've got a wider range of abilities, and so much source material to work with. You really can have them behind any plot. If you've got a plot that's going and you think it's faltering because it needs something else, you can easily put in a demon or devil puppet master into the works, and you have now just added so much more life to this campaign, and you can just keep it going.
Or what if you got a campaign going on and they kill your bad guy too soon? Right. He doesn't get he's supposed to get away, but he doesn't. The players will F you every time with that. They get the critical when you don't expect. And instead of fudging it, right? And he died. It was crucial, but it didn't matter because he wasn't the real guy. Or he serves a powerful demon or devil, and they bring him back. And
awesome.
And maybe they bring him back a little bit different than he was before. Or they bring him back, as
undead.
Yeah, he's actually now Bob the Zombie. Nothing special about him whatsoever. He gets to carry around the chamber pot or something. But
you bring him back as a zombie. He's no threat, but he's a constant threat because they just keep bringing him back.
Well, yeah. I mean, in some ways, it could almost be like comic relief and like, oh, Bob again. But it keeps it interesting. It keeps it fresh. It's just another perspective. It's another way to use that same monster over and over again. And it's another way for demons and devils to influence your campaign without taking a direct hand and confronting the party, because, a Balor or a Pit Fiend, your party isn't going to be ready for them for a long time if you use them properly. So keep that in mind. This is just kind of a brief overview. That's not all that brief. We're not going into any specific demons or devils. Just some concepts for you guys to latch on to. Hopefully it helps with your game, improve, and just gives you some ideas to be creative and use the same old monsters in different ways. And
we like to, help you expand your game and expand your gaming knowledge so that you can better use these monsters to, essentially, so that your players are enjoying your game that much more. So with that, you can, click like, subscribe, give us a comment below on what you thought about the video, whether you have any ideas of monsters you'd like our opinions on. Check us out. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, nerdarchy.com.
We're everywhere, my friends. We're everywhere. So until next time,
stay nerdy.